A quick note before we get started, I'm moving in this section to Unity 2018.2. If you don't have that already, then you can click on official releases in the hub and find 2018.2 and download it. You can tell which version we're using in a section. It's up the top of our slides here, Unity 2018.2. And as I've said a couple of times in the past, if you're watching this in the future using 2018.3 or 2019 or 2020, not a problem. Usually things are backwards compatible, so long as you have at least 2018.2. Don't try to do this course with Unity 3. I don't think it'll go so well for you. Okay, let's jump in and talk about the game design very quickly because we've already worked through the core mechanic of this in a previous section. But if you skip that section, here is a reminder of the way the core mechanic works. We ask the player to think of a number between something and something, for example, between 1 and 1,000. Then we give them our guess, which is basically saying, let's take the upper level and the lower level and divide by 2, which will guess right in the middle. We're going to add a little bit more sophistication in this section by adding some randomness to our guess. We'll do that later on in this section, all going to plan. And then we ask the player for input. We show them our number. We start off with 500, and then we say, is it higher or is it lower, or do we get it correct? It's a good idea for us to map out our game flow because we'll have multiple screens, multiple scenes. We start off with our start menu, and you can see I've got some funny images. I'll explain that in a moment. And then we go into our core game. This is the higher, the lower, or you got it correct. And then we go into our win screen. Once we click play again, we will go back to the start menu. So that's the game flow. It's good to know how things are flowing in your game. Good to know what order things happen in. Our core game design, the player experience, it's a really simple little game we're creating here, but it's always a good idea to think about what's the experience we're creating. We want to create something that's joyful, just fun, just a bit silly, just, I guess, the thing. And as you can see, I'm going with some silly images here of myself and Ben, just to spice that up. The core mechanic is think of a number. We've talked about that already. The theme, a little bit silly, as I've done here. And then the core game loop, we know already, think of a number, feedback higher and lower. It's good to go through this exercise, even if it's really obvious what you're creating, particularly to think about what's the player experience. Because if all we're doing is presenting a tech demo to a player, it's not going to be that interesting. If you're a technical person, a programmer, you just like getting into the nuts and bolts of the code, it's good to train a little bit of your brain to be thinking of what is the player experience? Why is my player going to enjoy this above and beyond they can click a button? Why are they clicking a button? So this is practicing. In further sections, we'll get deeper into this and it'll be a lot more relevant, but I just wanted to reinforce this step of our game design at this point. And your challenge in this lecture, I want you to come up with a game theme. Think of a skin for your game. You can see if I jump up a few slides here, I've skinned it with Ben and I with silly wizard hats on. I'm going for this whole kind of wizard approach, fitting with the theme that we've already determined in the past for this game. That's a wizard approach, so we're these kind of weird looking wizards with our Elton John coloured sunglasses on. I don't know why. Anyway, so think of a skin for your game. What is the tone of the voice? So when you have the text on the screen, is it saying, I am the supreme ruler, guess the number? Or is it something that's more in a different character's voice? So what's the tone of the voice? What are the images you're going to use, and what is the overall style? And if you want to have a look at the different colors from our previous section where we talked about colors, that is all good as well. And then please do share your idea with us if you've got something that you think is a bit nifty. If you're scratching your head and saying, well, I kind of don't really know yet, not a problem. We can implement some of our game, and then you can come up with your skin and your tone and your approach for it as we move forward. Not a problem. Or you can just use my assets. That is fine as well. Okay, great stuff. Let's jump in the next video and start making our game.